Well, welcome to all our viewers for episode 52 and the first one when we aren't all together in the studio. Good evening, I'll say, gentlemen.
How's it, guys?
How's it, guys? Welcome. This is a little bit strange.
Yeah, a bit strange. And as we mentioned last week, I'm due for a little bambino in a couple of weeks. So I'm in my mandatory quarantine at the moment, which forces me to stay at home. And yeah, so it's quite weird to not be in the studio this evening. The first time we haven't done that setup there together and had a bit of a briefing beforehand. But yeah, this, I suppose, you know, in doing the Tuesday night live event, which if you haven't tuned in yet for, 7 o'clock every Tuesday, we do a live show, which is a little bit more chill. There's a bit of a, I don't know, there's a bit of a vibe to it. We have a guest on. So it's quite a nice event. Ryan, I think you're enjoying it the most out of all of us. I think you get the most keen for the live event.
Yeah, it's funny. I never actually thought I would be as keen and as excited about the live show as I have been. It's just a whole new thrill, man. You know, it's exciting. There's a whole lot of adrenaline. I love it. So I've thoroughly been enjoying the live shows, and yeah, more so because it's actually been labelled now as the Tuesday Whiskey Club.
Yeah, who labelled Ellen? I think labelled it Tuesday Whiskey Club.
So that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, quite a good
we're
name.
getting a couple of different labels happening here now, guys. We got to watch what we're doing.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I think the fun thing is having a little bit of a crisis before the setup starts. It's always good when the two of you are there, but like tonight, things are a little bit out of hand. But we're on, which is good.
I think that's I've got a lot of respect for all the podcasters and everyone that's been doing it this way for the last year. We've been fortunate to have our studio. We all work together, so there's never been an issue for us getting together to do the show. There's nothing quite like doing it in person, is it? It's I don't know, it just feels real. Whereas this now, there's a little bit of a disconnect. A little bit more difficult to say the right thing at the right time. You don't know if you're talking over someone. So obviously we're going to find our feet. And look, let's just say this out from the bat. We're going to do our Tuesday show will stay live. It'll stay on a forum like this. But our standard podcast show, we're going to be in the studio for that. So I think we've got it's going to be 3 of these episodes. The next 3 Fridays will be a online thing like this, but then we'll be back in the studio. And I was actually saying to the guys the other day, our studio, there's a bit of wear and tear in there, which kind of feels cool. Our desk is a bit worn, the lights and that, a few of them need replacing. There's a bit of work that's got to be done now in the next few weeks, but it's quite a nice thing because we've used that studio flat out. I mean, it's not just the hour of every week of doing the podcast. It's all the prep that goes into it, and it's starting to show the signs of a bit of wear and tear.
Yeah, certainly like tonight, I felt a little bit of a disconnect. Not used to starting a podcast without taping the door shut with duct tape. Those little routines that we have. So I felt a little bit weird getting this one on the go, but we'll get that studio fixed up and looking snazzy again before we get back in there.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The big there's something I think if we can start off tonight with, guys. There was a helicopter crash in Durban by the Mgani River. An instructor and a student were killed in that crash. So condolences to the families, everyone involved. There just seems to be so many aircraft accidents in the last few months. It's horrendous. And yeah, a horrible way to start the show this evening, but nevertheless something that must be said. Yeah, thoughts and prayers with yeah, friends and family of the deceased.
You don't mind me jumping in there, Bryan. I think that they say that crash in Durban earlier this week was attributed to a bird strike. I don't know if you guys saw the news as well about the heliport here in Midrand in Johannesburg a day or two ago. Just after we had spoken about it with Craig Wood on the show last week about the hazards of drones and all that flying around. Apparently they had to shut that heliport down because of a drone incursion of some sorts. And yeah, you know, these guys don't understand the severity of these types of things flying around and the accidents. I mean, if a drone had hit a helicopter, it could have caused a massive crash there as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. We can't do with any more of these pranks. It's terrible. Sorry, Brett, jumping over you here. These, like you said, Ryan, we spoke about it last week with Craig, and yeah, how's that? Not even a week later, it happened. Fortunately, it didn't lead to an accident in that one, but nevertheless, big investigation that's ongoing now. And I think it was actually the company Hilti. I think they had their drone up they were doing some photography of one of their events. So bit of egg on their face. Obviously, they haven't been able to comment because you know, there's an investigation ongoing. But it's unacceptable, really. Drones need to stay the hell away from any formal aviation airspace.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, like what Craig is doing, like going to flight schools and speaking about it. Hopefully, that sort of thing will create a little bit more awareness around it.
What's going on there, Ryan? Is it dinner time? the joys of online, eh?
Yeah, this is the biggest worry I had about doing the show now. It's, you know, evening suicide hour in my house is a 2.5 year old going berserk, and no amount of duct tape is going to keep that quiet. So, sorry. Yeah,
I'm reluctant to rip into you too much because I'm due for that in a couple of weeks as well. So
it's coming.
I'm feeling a little bit out here. I really should start creating some noise in the background for some.
So, guys, Ryan, did you see SAST postpone the final liquidation? That's for another 3 months. Pravin Gordhan came out on the radio the other day. There's still absolutely no way that any SA Express employee is going to get any money out of the government. In fact, there is actually no way to pay the employees anymore. There is no vehicle available. There's no company. So all that waits now is final liquidation, and no doubt final liquidation will come and it will be extended again and again and again because there's just too much embarrassment and egg on the face of the DPE and government to admit that they cocked up. And now we sit in a situation where this liquidation, this inevitable liquidation, just goes on and on and on. What a disgrace.
Yeah, look, they never fail to disappoint, and you know, I don't think there's ever going to be any amount of hope that could restore my faith in the DPE. And you know, Pravin Gordhan, in my opinion, personally, is a major letdown. You know, at one stage he was sort of the beacon of hope 2 or 3 years ago when SA Express really started hitting the bad times. And there was all these promises from him and his department that no, things will be okay and will get us through this. And now they just really wash their hands off of the lot. They just don't seem to feel socks for anyone. So, yeah, very unfortunate.
Yeah, let down is the understatement of the century.
Yeah.
SAA subsidiaries, though, 2.7 billion, Brett, going to Mango, SA Technical, and Air Chefs. So that's a lifeline that Mango really needed. And obviously for us as pilots, and I'm not talking about as taxpayers, I'm talking about pilots. That's a great thing because there's 150 odd pilots there that hopefully now with that boost of income will be able to keep their jobs. So from an aviator's perspective, that's brilliant news. I'm not so sure from a ratepayer or taxpayer's perspective, it's the best thing in the world. But right now, 2.7 billion to keep them going. Obviously, on a much more, I don't know, Ryan, are they on a reduced schedule? What's the story? I'm not entirely sure, because obviously a lot of aircraft have gone back to the original owners. I know Safi are busy flying around in one of the 800s that was in Mango colors not so long ago, and it's obviously another ongoing saga. But for me personally, to see that money going into Mango, I can't help but be happy about it, because if it means the pilots and the cabin crew can keep their jobs, then it's difficult to be angry about that. Brett, obviously looking at it from a neutral's perspective, you being not being a pilot side, what do you think about this? These subsidies getting a bailout?
Well, I mean, regardless of being a pilot or not a pilot, I think for everyone involved at Mango, SAA Technical, Air Chefs, it's a lifeline. They're desperately needed. We can't have another couple of thousand people sitting out there without an income. I mean, so yes, it hits the taxpayer a little bit harder, but what doesn't hit the taxpayer hard in this country? I mean, everything we give gets either stolen, disappears into corruption, non-delivery, whatever. So if it goes to the right people, it keeps them employed. Sheesh, I'm all for that. I think it's, thank goodness they've done it. Thank goodness they've done it so quickly as well, because, they could have sat around and 6 months later come through and said, right, here's another 3 billion. 6 months was too late. So it hasn't even been a couple of weeks. So thank goodness for that. I'm very chuffed about that.
All that aside, though, guys, I mean, what has this done to their reputation? I mean, in the general public, knowing that, for a short while now, they're probably going to lose their tickets that they had booked in the next 2 or 3 months to go with Mango. Now, all of a sudden, they're carrying on, but it just seems a little bit too, sketchy. And you asked the question about, are they operating on a reduced schedule? I think they are operating all their domestic flights except for Zanzibar. They're not doing Zanzibar anymore at the moment. But yeah, I mean, surely their reputation and the people's faith in buying tickets with Mango is going to be tarnished. And what does that do for them going forward?
No, definitely, you're 100% right. It's going to take a brave or very rich person to buy a ticket on Mango right now, because people are just unsure. But and how long that 2.7 billion loss, who knows what is owing and all the rest. But it's certainly, I suppose, enough for this initial little boost. Make sure the guys and girls get their salaries, and hopefully carry on operating for the inevitable future. But as anything in South Africa, nothing is certain. The aviation industry here is certainly not certain. So, we'll have to wait and see with that one, unfortunately.
I just want to ask a question with that. Is the bailout of Mango and Air Chefs and SAA Technical not the new SAA version 2, effectively? Or is there another SAA version 2 and Mango?
I seem to think it's an SAA version 2 and Mango by the noise that's happening in the social media circles, because SAA have just exited or about to exit business rescue now, for what that's worth.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt. I don't think that they're going to. Brett, I hear what you're saying there, but I think they want a separate SAA version 2. They're now ready to operate under the SAA colors and everything. So I don't see them sorting out Mango, which is a very different brand to SAA, and then trying to change that brand. They want SAA will carry on in a very watered down version. Sure, that's an understatement, isn't it? But a very watered down version of what it used to be. Did you guys read Guy Leitch's article?
No, I didn't. I hadn't read it.
SAA, it's entitled SAA Transformation at Any Cost. I can neither confirm or deny whether I agree with Guy Leitch in that article, but I highly agree with Guy Leitch in that article. Brilliantly
I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, go, Brett.
I think that is the absolute understatement. I don't think there's anyone that can't agree with that article. He just speaks the truth. And unfortunately, it is going to be at any cost. It's just a matter of time till we find out what that cost is going to be.
Yeah, my family won't be traveling on SAA. That there is 100% guarantee. Not until the pilots are chosen on merit or the skill set alone. What do we always say? Knowledge, skills, and attitude. How can you take that and throw that down the toilet? It's just not on. But anyway, good article by Guy Leitch, and worth the read. There's a little bit of, from a tourism point of view, in South Africa. Obviously still betting. There's still some good deals on at the moment. There's a lot of people going into game lodges on specials and stuff like that, talking about locals. And so if you do want to go to a nice 5-star game lodge and you've never had the money to do it, and you want to do it, now is definitely the time. But on the other hand, you get stuff like Israel, or LL Airlines, not allowed to come to South Africa now. Banning tourists from coming to South Africa. This after it was announced that they were going to open up the Johannesburg flight, and that's in spite of them being one of the most vaccinated countries in the world, and they've got an incredibly low number of cases, and they have stopped flights from coming into South Africa. So, Brett, I'll throw it to you now. This is obviously them being very cautious, and it's very, very worrying, because if they do this, who else is going to do this? I mean, I think over 60% of their population is vaccinated. The flights and everything were organized. I mean, there were tickets sold, and then suddenly the government comes along. No, you're not allowed. No tourists to South Africa. Now, this is a major, major, major concern, because there's no signs of everyone here being vaccinated in the very near future. Are we now stuck with the situation where we're not going to get airlines coming in here for the next year?
I can weigh in on that one, Brian. It actually doesn't surprise me that LL are doing that, because I know historically they've always been quite sort of pedantic and paranoid about their security issues. If you've seen an LL aircraft parked on the apron in Joburg, there's a vehicle that's standing there. It's got a 24/7 security team around it, and when they get airborne and come in for an approach and landing, there's a helicopter that flies around the airport that's on standby. So it almost doesn't surprise me that they are going to these sort of levels of precautions, knowing that they are that pedantic about other things involving the airline as well. So, yeah, not in the least bit surprised. But I don't think it's going to affect tourism from that side too much. I've certainly seen it with the charter market. Unique seem to be picking up lots of expressions of interest there in the quoting side, and it looks like there's a definite show of recovery from the next month or two coming that way from the charter side, especially with the Americans being allowed to come in and travel to South Africa now.
Another bit of poor news from the southern part of Africa, at least. You see Ethiopian Mozambique. They've announced an indefinite suspension of domestic flights. That's from the 6th of May. So they were that was a major boost to Mozambique when Ethiopian decided to come into the picture there. And just like that, they're out. So it's a little bit of a blow. And there are quite a few South African guys that I know that have been flying for for them. So you wonder what happens again. It's similar to what we were talking about last week with Mango. You know, if Mango falls over, there's 150 pilots, 400 cabin crew. I don't know how many cabin crew they've got in the picture. The same now you have with Ethiopian Mozambique. It's not a good situation.
No, and the casualties are it's drastic. You know, and it's not just, I mean, we often tend to forget about the ground staff, the engineers, you know, all the people, the check-in staff, all the support base around an airline operation. Yeah, I mean, you could lose easily up to 1,000, 1,500 jobs in one airline, you know, toppling over like that. So it's sad, man. We need to see that come to an end.
No, it's not good. A positive sign, though, in South Africa, Comair are doing really, really well. They've been conservative. They've been below the radar, but they're getting on with business. They're doing their thing, and they're busy negotiating right now their cancellation of the MAX order. Yeah, I was reading this today. You know, 2013 they started that deal for the MAX. It's a hell of a long time ago, and how different was the aviation landscape back then? But yeah, they're obviously pulling out of that. Look, despite our local market here in South Africa being down 50%, they're operating a full domestic network. They are doing well. They're very, very quietly going about their business, and I don't think it's going to be too long again before they're a proper big operation. And we really need a strong Comair in South Africa right now. Someone to challenge Airlink. Obviously, I think, you know, if I think of Airlink's competitor, surely their big competitor is going to be a Comair type setup as opposed to a Safair. So
Yeah.
Comair is an important cog in the South African landscape wheel. There's no doubt about that. But hats off to them. I mean, week to week, Ryan, we don't really talk about them too much because they are below the radar. They're just getting about their business. They seem to have kept a lot of their core clients, and it's awesome. Kudos to them.
Yeah, I'm so chuffed to see it. I mean, you know, we spoke about it a few shows ago when we were talking about legacy airlines, and Comair is one of those. I mean, they've been operating for 75 odd years. I stand to be corrected. But yeah, I also read in that article, I mean, I think it's within a month or two from now they plan to be operating their full complement of aircraft, which is good to see. I certainly know from the crew side that they've taken a bit of a hit in salaries, but they've managed to, for the most part, retain their jobs, which is what any pilot could, you know, actually just be more than grateful for. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Comair go from strength to strength, and maybe they'll capitalize on the wobbly patch that Mango's gone through as well.
Yeah. Look, like you said, I think they've had to make sacrifices and that, but any aircrew now would take that. So yeah, long may that carry on, and the Comair guys and girls, we certainly are behind you. Did you see? I had this up the other night on our live show, and I almost was like not entirely sure if this was accurate, so I rechecked it today. Last Monday, 95 passengers, not 9,500, 95 passengers made their way through Hong Kong's main airport on Monday.
95. In a 24-hour period.
95 passengers.
That's crazy. That's like enough to fill an E195 or something like it. I mean,
yes, it's enough to fill a taxi here in South Africa.
Twice. Oh,
yeah,
but
quite sad, crazy. It's very, very sad, and obviously, so many of our ex-colleagues are there flying in Hong Kong. Most of them for a cargo company. So I want to jump across to the cargo side because. What got me interested in cargo this week, I kind of thought about trying to make the theme of it about cargo this week. If you haven't noticed, Brett Preston's jumped off. I don't know what's happened, but we have to carry on. So Ryan and I try to hold the ball here. But the South African Post Office in the news, they are trying to ban couriers from delivering packages that are less than 1 kilogram.
No. I mean, why? Because first of all, it's just showing how useless the South African postal system really is, and no surprise because it's another government-owned entity.
Yeah,
blah,
who
blah,
owns
blah,
that?
blah, blah.
Which government? I don't even know which entity. Is it DPE or what?
I couldn't even
who
tell.
cares? They're all bloody useless anyway. But what got me interested in it was I don't know if you follow. There's a guy, John Ostrow is his name. They've got a website. It's called the Air Current. It's one of these sort of paid news websites, but they go if you've got a bit of cash that you want to spend on an airline news subscription, it's a really good one to do it on. And they've brilliant article written about cargo and the whole cargo world. And I was reading it today. It's quite a we look at it from a pilot perspective. We've said it a couple of times on the podcast. Is cargo going to be the lifeline for pilots around the world? And reading something like this, it really makes me think that there's that possibility. Just to give you a bit of feedback, the whole article was based around Amazon and their sort of entrance into the cargo market. And it's a very, very exciting thing because we all know how big Amazon is. And, they've taken over the e-commerce space and they are entering the cargo space at one hell of a rate of knots. Going back, December the 25th, 2013, there was a big day for cargo and e-commerce around the world because that was a day in the States where millions and millions of shipments of e-commerce goods were not where they were supposed to be. They were stuck in various parts of the country due to various things, weather, not stock availability, but mainly operational reasons. And it led to a massive shift in the way overnight express cargo started happening. Now, overnight express shipping started in 1973 with FedEx. So it goes back a hell of a long way. And it's if you look at what needs to be done from a logistics point of view, I mean, I was reading up about FedEx. They have, sorry, I'm trying to look at my notes here, but from their Memphis base, 11 p.m. in the evening, flights start coming in. Now, 140 of those flights come in, the last one being at about 7 o'clock in the morning, 140 flights into that base. So all the cargo in America finds its way, from a FedEx point of view, into Memphis, and then it gets dispersed through this hub. Now, the same happens for UPS. They do the same, but it's out of their Kentucky branch. And, I mean, 140 flights, Ryan, on heavy aircraft. Now, Amazon have entered this market, but Amazon have a slightly different concept with this because they've got all these fulfillment centers around the country in America. Now, those fulfillment centers, they're not just giant warehouses. They are basically warehouses where they keep goods that are likely to be sold in that region. So Amazon have grown tremendously. I mean, 2015, they started ops with 20 767 aircraft. That was under the Amazon Prime Air sort of logo. They've grown to 77 planes with 11 more 767s on the card. So they are becoming a big operator. And FedEx and UPS are obviously starting to look at Amazon as a big competitor, although it's Amazon that is providing the goods for them to fly around. So it's quite an unusual situation that we're watching over here. UPS and FedEx rely on Amazon not only for not only going to be for competition, but they rely on them to provide the goods to fly around in the first place. It's a hell of an interesting story. So that's on the Air Current if you want to have a look.
Yeah, I'll definitely give that a read.
Bryan, I was just going to comment about Sun Country. I don't know if you spoke about Sun Country. So Sun Country is an ultra low cost carrier in the States. I don't know what ultra low cost means. I think you get a seat, but you don't actually get an airplane. I don't know. But anyway, these guys have got a different business model. They've actually got 3 different revenue streams. So they've pushed out that they are focusing on obviously their passengers, but they also doing private charters as well. So for like football teams or rugby teams or government defense force carrier. So they're earning a second income stream there. But the third one is they have now signed up with Amazon as well. So they are doing all the Amazon deliveries countrywide as well within the States. So I think a lot of airlines are looking at that nowadays and saying, this is something different. It's a different income stream. Amazon's starting to dominate, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, dominating in nearly every facet of business these days. It's quite remarkable. One of the other articles that came out of this was the whole what's happening with the various fleets around the world. We've spoken a few times about narrow bodies and their sort of rise in popularity. Man, it's an interesting thing, because let's just take India as an example right now. India was making this remarkable, not only recovery, but surge into the world market in aviation. They really had sort of boosted the way we look at them, I suppose, as a major aviation force. And we don't like to talk about negative things on the show, but if you look at the pandemic now and the what do you call it? The second, not wave, the word I'm trying to find, but the variant. That variant there has caused chaos. And if you look at the curve of growth now in India, it's taken a remarkable dive, and it just shows how critical this recovery is going to be, because you could argue a month or so back or 2 months back that India had recovered. I mean, they were operating flat out, and now all of a sudden they're in this sort of steep decline. But anyway, it goes into talking about the regional aircraft, and very well written, because it answered a question that I've been thinking about for a long time. The narrow body aircraft that are popular flying at the moment, they're all associated with other big legacy carriers. So if a legacy carrier had a long haul route, yeah, sure, they can use an A321 XLR on that route right now. That's because they had that route in the first place. You're not going to see an airline starting up tomorrow and saying, right, we're going to operate long haul on a narrow body aircraft. So although the narrow bodies have recovered, they've only recovered because they're being tied to big legacy carriers in the first place. So again, a very interesting thing. They talk about Q400s. I mean, Q400 aircraft in particular has taken a massive knock, because the airlines, they're speaking about Europe. They're calling Europe a bit of a black hole in aviation right now, because America is recovering quite rapidly. Their vaccination program has been very good, and Europe is just lagging way behind. So you look at Q400 operators as an example. Flybe, they went bang before this whole thing started. They were a big operator. Another one, I can't think of the name right now, but that aircraft in particular is hardly anyone flying it at the moment. So it's the narrow bodies tied to big legacy carriers that are doing all the work right now. So interesting to see. It's not all just about flying the right aircraft to the right destination. It's about having that destination available to your network in the first place. Not so easy just to start a route because you've got the right airplane.
I also think, aircraft choice for the airlines is by and large tied to operating costs now. I mean, the little bit that I know about the Q400s, they're an expensive aircraft to operate. Maintenance-wise, they're quite taxing on the airline. So, I think it's certainly going to be, the airlines are going to be considering operating the most affordable, most efficient types, going forward. That's probably what's going to be the deciding factor. You also mentioned something earlier, Bryan, about, for pilots, the cargo airlines being the future, and you can really see it. I've got a lot of mates that are out there flying for cargo operators, and of the
You've got a lot of mates.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just you two. Well, sort of. You two that tolerate me. The other guys that tolerate me, they fly. I've got mates that are flying in the corporate sectors, airlines, and the cargo side as well. The cargo guys seem to be the guys that are the most relaxed about holding on to their jobs right now, whereas the corporate guys are stressing a bit, So, yeah, just my 2 cents on that topic. Not easy for anyone.
I shot out a short video this afternoon. I had a online chat with Angie McIntosh. She has made herself available to any pilot cabin crew member that would like to chat. She's got a background in psychology, and she wants to try and help the aviation community. I think it's a really, really nice gesture. Just me speaking to her the other day, the stuff that she's talking about is all those same sort of emotions that we all went through. And I just found it quite interesting. It depends what, phase of, grief or depression that you're in. It's not, as an example, Ryan, you and I are big mates, but had we been at different stages of our grief cycle, it's quite difficult for us to help each other because, I might have moved past and, there's a hell of a lot involved. And sometimes I know with myself in the past, when people have asked me for advice, I sometimes try and give advice, but it tends to be the type of advice you give your mate after a couple of beers. Just pull yourself together, man. Stop being an idiot, which is not necessarily the best advice when it comes to someone genuinely being depressed. So again, I'll leave all Angie's details in the show notes. Just check it out. She's left the calendar link there. You can click it, and it's got all her available slot times. You can just choose a half-an-hour session, meet her over Zoom, and have a chat with Angie. Of course, Angie is Lloyd's wife, Ryan. I'm sure you know that. So yes, yeah. Not only does she have a background in psychology, she's got a background dealing with a grumpy pilot who's also lost his job. I'm sure Lloyd won't mind me saying that, but that's the reality. She knows all about it. So well worth it to get hold of her. If you are battling, give her a shout and have a chat with Angie.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to offer. And like you say, she must be well versed with being able to talk to pilots or aviation personnel, specifically knowing, obviously being married to a pilot, especially one who's grumpy because he can't be flying.
She knows her stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I had a nice call yesterday from Jason Northwood at Go Aviate, just thanking us for our stuff. And I said to him again, we here to support him, and his app's coming out soon. I definitely want to have him on the show. I think he's got a lot of good gen for the aviation community, so we will have him on the show at some point. But yeah, go check out goaviate.net. Don't forget to check us out on Tuesdays, 7 o'clock for our live show. And we'll do this show again on Friday, of course, comes out as the Friday show, only for the next 3 weeks, and then it'll be back into the studio. So for our diehard supporters, I know you'll watch till the end. Thank you very much. And who are diehard supporters, Ryan, without trying to forget any? I don't want to forget any names. That's why I've thrown it at you.
Oh, well, look, I mean, if I have to shoot off a list at the top of my head, we've got, so many, Mike Mason, Dale Rodman, Ian Finley, Duncan Gillespie, Gavin Hill,
John.
All the
Alan
Johns.
McCauley, all the Johns. Yeah, from across the world. So there's a whole list of and really, really do appreciate it. And I know this.
Family and friends.
Yeah, Yeah, no, definitely. I missed that one last time and got a bit of a lashing when I got home. So family and friends obviously high up on the list there. But yeah, no, apologies for not being able to be in the studio this week. But obviously we will be back. And yeah, thanks for listening to us. And we'll be back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. And then next Friday in the afternoon sometime for the Friday show.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, Ryan. Bye.
Ciao. Bye.